Less than a year after I faked my death, Thomas Oswald found me. But no matter how, he knelt on the cold ground, begging. I refused to go back with him until he used his power to throw my elderly parents into a state penitentiary. Novia, if you don't want me supporting Lydia, I won't bring her into our lives anymore. Just come home. Can we go back to how we were? Thomas's eyes were bloodshot, his voice thick with desperation. You don't want your parents spending their remaining years rotting in a maximum security prison in the frozen north, do you? I screamed every curse I knew at him, but he only laughed, a sound raw and bordering on madness. Novia, without you, I've been out of my mind. Anyway, in the end, I broke. When I returned, Thomas really did seem like a changed man. He stayed by my side constantly. He even proposed sending Lydia away to a secluded clinic in Vermont right in front of my eyes. He burned the trust fund agreements he prepared for her. He handed me the keys to the entire Oswald estate, telling me that from now on, everything was mine to rule. Our son, Henry, who had once screamed that he wanted Lydia to be his mother, now trailed after me, desperately trying to win my favor with sweet words and shy smiles. I actually believed they had changed. I was just about to write a letter to my savior telling him I had no further requests. But then I saw them at the secluded chapel on the estate grounds. I caught Thomas. He was holding Lydia's arm with a gentle, protective reverence as she prayed. And my son, Henry, was clinging to Lydia's leg, looking up at her with a sweet, adoring smile. Aunt Lydia, when is my baby brother coming out of your tummy to play with me? Thomas gently pulled the boy back. Don't play around, Henry, and don't mention your brother. You almost let it slip in front of your mother last time. I froze where I stood. After a long moment, I tightened my grip on my umbrella and stepped forward. Remember, your mother is also coming to the chapel today to pray for your grandmother. We can't stay long, Thomas said, keeping his voice low and solemn. And not a single word about the baby in front of her. Do you understand? Henry nodded, though his lower lip trembled. Dad, when can we bring Aunt Lydia back to the house? So cold out here, and she doesn't even have anyone to take care of her. Thomas stroked the boy's hair, a sigh escaping him. We can't rush this. We have to plan carefully. I'll figure out a way once she's closer to her due date. But Henry wouldn't let it go, mumbling petulantly, it's all Mom's fault. She's so selfish and jealous. Aunt Lydia is so sweet. Mom just wants to keep you all to herself. She hates Aunt Lydia. Quiet, Thomas snapped, cutting him off. That is your mother. Don't let me ever hear you speak of her with such disrespect again. Silence fell over the small chapel. Henry pounded, tears welling in his eyes. Lydia gently pulled the boy behind her, lifting her tear-rimmed eyes to look at Thomas. Thomas, please don't blame the child. It's my fault, she whispered, her voice trembling. That night you were so drunk. I was careless. I forgot to take the morning after pill, and now we're in this mess. I've made things so hard for you. I was fully prepared to spend the rest of my life in isolation, never disrupting your life with Novia. But if this child is born in some hidden clinic, they will grow up branded a bastard. They'll face nothing but cruelty and scorn. She slowly sank to her knees, tears spilling over her cheeks. I don't care what happens to me, but please, Thomas, give this baby a chance. As long as you don't abandon them, I'll wait. I'll wait forever. Get up, Thomas said, reaching down to pull her to her feet, his voice thick with emotion. I'll find a way. There's no need to find a way, I said, closing my umbrella as I calmly stepped over the threshold. There is no time like the present. You can bring Lydia back to the house today. My sudden entrance made Thomas stiffen. Every drop of color drained from his face, yet his hand instinctively moved to shield Lydia's stomach. Novia, let me explain, he stammered, his throat working hard as he searched for words. Baby, it was an accident that night. I drank too much. I thought she was you. It was only that one time. I swear to you. Only once. Something darker, sharper. Novia, can you stop being so damn passive-aggressive? I met his gaze, offering a small, polite smile. You're overthinking it. Not being passive-aggressive. I simply sympathize with how difficult pregnancy must be for Lydia, and I want to help. Thomas lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. His grip was so tight, I could feel the bones grinding together. His eyes were bloodshot, his chest heaving. What do you want from me? I told you it was an accident. Why do you have to keep twisting the knife? I looked down at his hand, bruising my wrist. I didn't struggle. I didn't cry out. You're overthinking it, Thomas. I'm just doing what a good wife is supposed to do. He violently flung my hand away, taking 2 steps back with a sudden burst of rage. He swept his arm across the altar table, sending the brass chalice and offering plates crashing to the stone floor. Fine, beautiful. You're burning with rage inside, but you'd rather die than show it. Who are you playing this saintly, uncaring martyr for? I let out a soft breath, having no desire to argue with him. My silence only infuriated him more. He glared at me, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Suddenly, he grabbed Lydia's arm, pulling her roughly to his side. Fine, since you're so incredibly generous, I'm bringing Lydia back today. After all, your parents are still at my mercy. You wouldn't dare run. Let's see how long you can keep up this little act. Lydia stumbled as she was pulled, glancing at me with a look of faint terror. But as she lowered her head, I caught the swift, triumphant curl of her lips. Looking at the two of them, I felt a strange sense of detachment. I wasn't surprised by her petty malice, was surprised by myself, the girl who used to cry, shake, and lie awake all night at the mere mention of her name seemed to belong to another lifetime. Of course, I said, stepping aside to clear the doorway. I'm a bit tired. I'll head back to rest. Thomas froze behind me for a second, then chased after me, his voice raw and heavy. Novia, haven't you punished me enough? I've done everything to accommodate you this time. I just wanted us to have a normal life. What do you gain by torturing me with this coldness? I paused, but I didn't turn around. His arrogance only existed because he was absolutely certain I could never leave him. But what he didn't know was that during the year I had faked my death, I had saved the life of Governor Bradley. The governor had promised me a favor, any favor. Originally, I was going to write to him to say I needed nothing, but now I wanted to ask for a formal, legally binding decree of divorce and protection. I wanted to be truly free of Thomas Oswald. When I returned to the estate, I ordered the maids to move all my belongings to the carriage house at the far edge of the property. Mrs. Higgins, the old housekeeper who had once served Lydia, hurried in. When she heard the news, she immediately began snooping around. Ma'am, far be it for me to speak out of turn, but when Mr. Oswald furnished the emerald suite for Miss Lydia, he cleared out 3 entire vaults of treasures for her. The cabinets were filled with fine imported porcelain, and the drapes were pure silk. Lakeside Cottage. It's a bit rustic. I'm afraid Miss Lydia won't find it to her taste. I sat down my teacup and smiled. Mrs. Higgins, take a few girls to the vault. Whatever Lydia likes, move it in. You can tear down and rebuild every brick of this cottage to match her exact taste. Mrs. Higgins blinked, startled, before her face split into a wide, greedy grin. Your generosity is a blessing to this household, ma'am. I'll get right on it. As Mrs. Higgins scurried away with a smug swagger, my maid, Lucy, ran to me, her eyes red and brimming with tears. Ma'am, she's just a widow. Why does she get to push you around like this? Over and over. I stared out the window at the white magnolias in the yard. It's just a house, Lucy. If she wants it, let her have it. I hardly had the words left my mouth when Thomas stepped into the courtyard. Mrs. Higgins was leading a group of maids carrying furniture. Running straight into him, she offered a fawning smile. Mr. Oswald, you've come at the perfect time. The mistress is having us redecorate the cottage exactly to Miss Lydia's liking. It's just the white magnolias in the yard are a bit of a problem. Miss Lydia has always despised the scent of magnolias. She says they give her a headache. What do you think? I chimed in from the doorway. Rip them out. Plant whatever she prefers, peonies, roses, whatever Mrs. Higgins deems appropriate. Suffocating silence fell over the yard. Thomas stood rooted to the spot, his face a mask of disbelief. All of you get the hell out, he commanded. The servants scrambled to leave, terrified. Lydia didn't leave immediately. Instead, she took a step closer to him, her voice soft and soothing. Thomas, please don't upset yourself. I can sleep. Anywhere. Really, there's no need to argue with Novia on my account. You, too, leave, Thomas said, without even looking at her. Lydia's sweet smile froze. Her lips parted, but she didn't dare utter another syllable. She lowered her head and quickly retreated. Thomas strode over, towering over me. His chest rose and fell in violent, ragged breaths, the corners of his eyes so red they looked ready to bleed. Novella Oswald, do you have any idea that every single brick, every tree, every flower in this place was chosen because you love them? I hauled these magnolias myself from 300 miles away. I buried them in the dirt and watered them every day for weeks just to keep them alive. And now you're telling them to tear them out. No matter how much you want to spite me, you shouldn't stomp on my heart like this. Thomas, I said, my voice empty of emotion. Lydia is carrying your child. She should be kept comfortable. I am only thinking of the Oswald legacy. He suddenly let out a laugh. It was a terrible, broken sound, uglier than any sob. Novia, you are unbelievable. Since you're so eager to give everything away, I'll stay in this lakeside cottage tonight and sleep with Lydia. I bowed my head slightly. Enjoy your evening. I'll take my leave. The moment I turned, he lunged at me like a wild beast, locking his arms around my waist and pulling me flush against his chest. His fingers clamped onto my jaw, forcing my head back as his mouth crashed down on mine in a brutal, punishing kiss. The metallic taste of blood immediately spread between us. I didn't struggle. I simply stood there like a block of wood, letting him tear at my lips. He must have felt my total lack of response because he pulled back slightly, his eyes flashing with a sudden desperate terror before he pressed down even harder. It was as if he believed that if he just forced it enough, he could spark the old warmth, the old passion we used to share. He carried me to the bed, tearing at my clothes. But when his fingers ripped at my silk camisole, a sudden violent wave of nausea surged up from my stomach. I wrenched myself from his grip, leaned over the edge of the bed, and retched violently. Thomas froze on the mattress, his voice dropping to a hoarse whisper. For the year you were gone, I swear I didn't touch another woman. Lydia's baby. It was a drunken mistake. I've explained this 1,000 times. Do you still not believe me? He fell silent for a moment, then whispered, Where is it? Do you think I'm dirty because I touched someone else? Do I disgust you? I wiped my mouth with a handkerchief, slowly sat up and pulled my torn shirt together. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, Yes, you're a disgusting used man, who I wish were dead. Thomas went completely still. The color drained from his face, as though every drop of blood had abandoned him. What? You heard me. I met his stare without flinching. I used to look at you and see the man I loved. Now all I see is someone who lies, manipulates, threatens my parents, and climbs into another woman's bed. You make me sick. His lips trembled. No, I know you don't want to hear it. I continued calmly, but it's the truth. The moment you used my parents to force me home, whatever was left between us died. The moment you chose to protect Lydia instead of your wife, it stayed dead. Thomas stumbled backward until the edge of the bed caught him. I did all of this because I couldn't lose you. You lost me long before today. Silence swallowed the room. Finally he whispered, Is there really nothing I can do? I looked at him as if he were a stranger. No. He buried his face in his hands. For the first time since I had known him, Thomas Oswald cried without trying to hide it. Great, broken sobs echoed through the bedroom. I'll send Lydia away. I'll give away every cent. I'll release your parents. I'll do anything. Please, don't leave me. I picked up my torn shawl and wrapped it around my shoulders. You still don't understand. This isn't the negotiation. I don't want compensation. I want freedom. Before he could answer, Lucy knocked urgently on the door. Ma'am. Her frightened voice rang through the room. A messenger from the governor's office has arrived. He says the matter you requested has been approved. Thomas's head snapped up. What matter? I walked to the door and opened it. A man dressed in the governor's official uniform bowed respectfully. Mrs. Oswald, I have a sealed decree from Governor Bradley. It grants immediate state protection for you and your parents. It also orders the release of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet from prison. Thomas shot to his feet. What? The messenger continued as though he hadn't spoken. Additionally, until the court reviews your petition, Mr. Thomas Oswald is forbidden from using his political or financial influence to interfere with your movements. He handed me a thick envelope bearing the governor's crimson seal. I accepted it with both hands. Thank you. The messenger bowed once more before leaving. Thomas rushed toward me and snatched at the papers. No, you can't divorce me. You promised we'd spend our lives together. I quietly pulled the decree back. I made that promise to the man you used to be, not to the man standing in front of me. His knees gave out. He collapsed onto the floor. So, you planned this. For how long? For exactly as long as it took me to realize I'd never have peace while I remained your wife. Outside, the front gates burst open. A line of state officers marched into the estate carrying the governor's insignia. Their captain announced loudly enough for the entire household to hear. By order of Governor Bradley, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet are to be released immediately. The governor also requests that Mrs. Novia Oswald accompany us to the capital under official protection. Every servant in the mansion froze. Mrs. Higgins's face turned white. Even Lydia, watching from the hallway with one hand over her stomach, staggered back in disbelief. Thomas looked from the officers to me. His voice cracked. You're really leaving? I smiled faintly. Yes. This time, you won't be able to find me. Novia looked at the governor's officers and smiled. Wait. Everyone stared at her. I've changed my mind. Thomas's eyes lit up with hope. I knew it. I knew you couldn't leave me. Novia laughed. The sound was soft. It was the first genuine laugh she had made in years. I said I wasn't leaving today. I didn't say I was staying for you. She turned to the captain. Give me 30 days. I want every crime committed in this house documented before I leave. The captain nodded. As you wish. Over the next month, Novia became the perfect wife again. She smiled. She hosted dinners. She personally cared for Lydia's pregnancy. Thomas believed she had finally forgiven him. What he didn't know was that every conversation was being recorded by witnesses sent by the governor. Every forged document, every bribe, every illegal land purchase, every tax fraud, every threat he had made against her parents, every affair he had hidden. Everyone was copied into a thick file. Lydia made things even easier. Believing she had won, she began wearing Oswald jewels in public before the divorce was finalized. She introduced herself as the future Mrs. Oswald. She accepted gifts bought with company funds. She even instructed servants to call her madam. The servants obeyed, then testified against her. Henry was no better. He openly mocked Novia. I can't wait until Aunt Lydia becomes my real mom. Novia simply smiled. Then remember those words. A week later, the court heard testimony from dozens of servants describing years of emotional abuse encouraged by Thomas and Lydia. When asked who taught him to hate his mother, Henry innocently answered, Dad said Aunt Lydia understood him better. The courtroom fell silent. Thomas's face turned ashen. The governor personally signed the divorce decree. Thomas lost his political appointments. His business accounts were frozen while investigators examined years of financial crimes. Investors fled. Banks demanded immediate repayment. Within 2 months, the Oswald fortune began collapsing. Lydia thought Thomas would protect her. Instead, prosecutors charged her as a participant in several fraudulent schemes after evidence showed she knowingly benefited from stolen assets. Every expensive necklace, every property, every hidden bank transfer, confiscated. Thomas desperately tried to save her. The lawyers told him there was only one way: testify against Miss Lydia. The woman he had destroyed his marriage for became the first person he betrayed to save himself. Henry suffered the consequences too. The judge listened to recordings of him wishing his mother dead and calling Lydia his real mother. Novia calmly stated, "I am no longer seeking custody. I refuse to force a child to live with a mother he despises." Henry's smile vanished. He thought Lydia would happily raise him. Instead, Lydia wanted only Thomas's money. With the fortune gone, neither wanted the responsibility. For the first time in his life, Henry realized the only person who had ever loved him unconditionally had been the mother he rejected. He cried outside the courthouse, begging Novia not to leave. She paused only long enough to say, "You made your choice." Then she walked away without looking back.